enjoy it while it lasts. You know they're gonna decommission her next year.
It's always off-putting when a previously mute main character starts speaking. It doesn't help when the sequel begins with a video of Isaac speaking just before the events of the first game. Now I have to wonder why he was so silent during the duration of Dead Space 1. Did the microphone inside his helmet break, leaving him screaming himself hoarse during every cutscene trying to get someone's attention?
Thank you.
For what?
For just pushing me to do this. I mean, if it weren't for you, I never would have made it this far, because you made me stick with it.
Now that Isaac is capable of expressing human emotions with his newfound voice, Dead Space 2 will make up for the lack of said voice in the first game by basically doing that all over again, but this time doing it right. Either that is an evil Rubik's Cube on that man's desk, or one made for people with color blindness.
Isaac! You were drifting away for a moment there, Mr. Clark. I believe you were telling me about your nightmares that you've been having.
No, I believe you were showing him a video of his girlfriend that explained how her death was actually all Isaac's fault. I hope you weren't charging by the minute. Isaac went a bit mad after the events of the first Dead Space. You might think it's because he was exposed to the marker, but honestly, I think a straitjacket is fitting attire for someone so predisposed to desecrating the dead, stomping on every cadaver he came across to get the reward to pop out of their chest cavity. Considering all the ancient runes scribbled in blood on the walls of Isaac's padded cell, I have to assume he's pretty far gone down the path of being force-fed pudding cups by someone with a high school dropout's education. But no, one flashlight shined in his eye and he's back to reality and ready to stare down the very same force that tossed his mind around like it was in the jaws of a meth-addicted chihuahua. If the marker drove him this nuts to begin with, I highly doubt he would be able to go right back into fighting it, let alone being in good enough physical shape after 3 years of being institutionalized. I'd love to know how Franco made his way here with no weapons. Isaac can't walk down a hallway without a horde of monsters jumping out of him and nipping at his heels. Pulling off horror is like pulling off a good magic trick. It involves a lot of theatrics and setting of the stage. Dead Space is like pretending to toss a ball for a dog, and then tossing it again, and again. And eventually even a dog will realize you aren't tossing the ball, just holding it behind your back. All of the necromorphs must have been waiting for the signal, because as soon as Franco is turned into one, the rest come out of their monster closets. Either that or Franco managed to sneak past all this on his way to Isaac.
Clark! Isaac Clark, is that you?
Who are you?
My name is Daina.
As soon as Franco is dead, the lady that was giving him orders starts talking to Isaac over his personal communicator. That's right, here in this world, straitjackets have their own communication gear for some reason, which leads me to wonder why she didn't try contacting Isaac before now if she had his number.
Why should I trust you?
Because I'm not the one shooting at you.
That's a fine argument for a stupid person, so congrats on sizing Isaac up so fast. But anyone else would point out that you're not exactly in the same location, so the logic doesn't really work.
Come on, Stross. I'm here to help you. It was black. Deep black and glowing red with symbols.
Stross is another inmate that was being held here that was also exposed to the marker and driven insane. What's that? You don't remember Stross from the first game? Well, you'd be correct. He was a character in an animated movie that takes place in between games. None of the events of it matter to what goes on in this game, and I don't recall the game ever explaining so we can learn why Stross is supposed to be so important. Isaac simply attributes importance to Stross because in the middle of one of his crazed rants he mentions the marker.
Don't do it.
I'm not sure how an upward cutting motion freed Isaac from his restraints, since his arms are crossed over his chest. That scalpel would have sliced right through his wrist the way Foster just used it.
Your rig is red. It's red.
It is, but I don't know how Foster is seeing that. The rig is located on Isaac's back after all, and he never turned around to give Foster a look. Speaking of that health bar, everyone has one. The only thing it monitors is a person's health, so of course the logical location to place it is on one's back where they can't look at it to see their status. It's like wearing a Fitbit on a bandana around your forehead. As soon as Foster kills himself, I have Isaac demonstrate just how much he should be trusted among society by proceeding to use the hydraulic press he calls a leg to crush his corpse into several pieces. I don't know what the average pound per square inch of force a normal human foot applies when stepping on something, but I'm fairly certain that if Isaac stomped on a piece of coal, he'd turn it into a diamond.
I'm the one trying to rescue you.
Why? What's going on?
You're suffering from a unique form of dementia, Isaac. Something you contracted on Aegis 7.
When you hear the word sequel, you normally imagine a plot that hits on some new ideas within the existing framework established by the previous game. Daina plays the same exact role as Kendra did in the first game, a voice over the radio that guides Isaac around up until the moment she pulls out the knife to stick in his back over the marker. Isaac can wire the hospital's plasma cutter to his flashlight in seconds with all the same functionality as the gun from the first game. Imagine turning a dentist's x-ray gun into a laser and you're pretty close to imagining what Isaac accomplished in seconds with no spare parts or electronics.
Isaac, it's Daina. You have to dismember the creatures to stop them.
I know. I've had a lot of practice.
Daina knows who Isaac is and what he's been through, but still feels the need to remind him of how to fight necromorphs. I feel that the marker hive mind has lost its touch. In the first game, it led Isaac around by the nose using visions of Nicole up until the point where he learned she was dead and what he was seeing wasn't real. This time, it just shoves Nicole in his face again and again with TV static coming out of her eyes and expects him to play along all the same. Requiring a hole breach to be closed with a gunshot is a terrible idea. Not everyone, especially in a hospital, is armed with a gun.
There are necromorphs everywhere. Is the entire sprawl infected? How'd this happen? The marker was destroyed, Daina. I destroyed it.
You destroyed a marker, Isaac. Tiedemann built another one.
On this station? Why?
It's powerful alien technology. Tiedemann wants that power. Get to the tram.
The reason EarthGov used Isaac to build a marker is the classic free energy excuse. You might recognize this plot from Doom as well. Games have fixated on the idea that evil is a clean burning fuel. All of the fuse box manufacturers of this world decided to add an LCD screen to help guide those trying to disable security systems.
Daina, I thought you were routing me to residential. This looks like a Unitology recruitment center.
Unitology amounts to a Lovecraftian cult combined with Scientology worshipping alien technology it clearly doesn't understand. But what gets me is why EarthGov was totally fine having members of this cult so close to where they were building the icon of their faith. Considering how hard the government goes after Isaac on the mere suspicion he might destroy the marker, you'd think they would have given similar concern to the cult that's obsessed with him. Not only has Isaac discovered his voice in this game, he apparently also found the remove helmet button for his suit, because he pops that thing off like Tony Stark every chance he gets. Oddly, even when someone is trying to stab him in the eye.
You're a Unitologist. Of course you are. Why did I trust you?
For someone who has been betrayed by one living woman and one dead woman in the first game, you'd think Isaac would have developed some trust issues with women, especially a really demanding one who let him inside the church of the cult known for worshipping markers.
Well, that's why we brought you here. To build markers for us. To spread glorious convergence to the entire galaxy.
Daina sure didn't see anything wonderful about the necromorphs running rampant on the station and killing her brother Franco. How do you see the results of a marker firsthand and not even have your faith shaken a little? Somehow the gunship manages to shoot Daina and the two men holding Isaac, but not Isaac himself.
Besides, we got a better chance if we stick together. Don't you agree?
It's not a chance, Isaac. Other people are just a liability.
Ellie is the tough and strong variety of video game female, otherwise known as boring and one-dimensional. Her tendency to work alone goes right out the window the moment she meets up with Stross, a rambling nutcase who is the very definition of liability, but doesn't pass on dragging him around with her for some inexplicable reason.
I'll release the door lock. But after that, you're on your own. And please, don't follow me.
Kind of a dumb request to make since he's going to use the same elevator you're using right after you open the gate to let him through. I can't help but feel that Dead Space knows it mostly fails as a horror game, and is trying desperately to create scenarios that imbue the player with a sense of dread rather than engage their flight or fight response, which in a game where you have high-powered weaponry and are normally locked in a room until all the monsters are dead means the scales are tipped decidedly in the fight direction. That's probably why they keep plopping daycare centers and schools in Isaac's path for the first half of the game. While I give the developer a firm pat on the back for not shying away from the fact that children would get caught up in the massacre, it still fails to take my resting heart rate up more than a single beat, probably because just like in real life, children are remarkably easy to beat, and there is nothing to fear from them.
Still in denial? Afraid you're gonna cut your wrists if you listen to me?
With how often Nicole appears to nag Isaac, this might as well be the poster child for hallucinations always telling you how much you suck cliché. You may have noticed this game doesn't rely on scripted cutscenes much, instead giving you a heads-up window of the other character doing something. But then there are times where Ellie and Stross are just a few feet away from Isaac and she still insists on face-calling him, even talking to the screen in front of her instead of looking down at Isaac.
There may be other survivors over here.
Public sector is already beyond acceptable recovery conditions. I can't allow you to escape. Goodbye, Clark.
After Daina is killed, she's quickly replaced by a new character who wants Isaac dead. I know he wants Isaac dead because he keeps calling Isaac to tell him how this new trap he set will definitely 100% kill Isaac this time. If someone would take Tiedeman's phone away from him, he might actually be able to pull off one of these traps. Tiedeman shuts off the power to the transportation hub, so Isaac has to turn on the backup power using the solar collectors. As a reminder, this station is in orbit around Saturn. At this distance from the sun, solar power is completely negligible. Whenever I sin a game for disregarding science or known physics, I have to be extra careful. Despite what the dulcet tone of my voice might have led you to believe, I'm an average intelligence type, so I have to spend some time researching if something is plausible. However, sometimes I'm so confident that something is wrong I don't waste a single typed letter on a Google search, and a flamethrower working in the hard vacuum of space is one of those times. The orbital solar array has an ejection seat for some reason, an ejector seat that fires Isaac right towards the station with no way to slow down since this is space and parachutes don't work without an atmosphere. I'm sure everyone is capable of spotting the design flaw in this escape system.
You okay?
It's getting worse.
What is step 4? Who will be waiting?
If the screws, if the needle, she'll be waiting.
He's not gonna make it. We gotta keep moving.
Isaac's sole interest in Stross is that he believes Stross will tell him how to destroy the marker, so I was expecting Isaac to start questioning Stross about the marker as soon as they met up. Instead, Isaac treats Stross like he's a crazy person and disregards anything he says, which makes me wonder what the point of getting to him was. I'm going to assume the space station tram was never designed to reach escaping explosion speed.
He's using the solar beam. We gotta stop the transport now!
Instead of using the solar beam to destroy the track, why not point it at the tram? All three of them are trapped inside.
The Ishimura, if the gravity tethers are still functional, I can...
You can snag Govsec and drag it back? Isaac, this is ridiculous.
If I can line the tracks up just for a few seconds, you should be able to get the transport across.
I have my doubts about this plan. A significant chunk of the track would be melted and warped. Using gravity tethers to align them would probably result in the tram derailing. When the game began, Isaac told Nicole to enjoy her time on the Ishimura while it lasts because the ship was going to be decommissioned in a year. Now, 3 years later, the ship is instead being remodeled for upgrades. I personally don't think that a disastrous event like the entire crew being killed should change that plan.
It's gonna be okay. I promise. This won't hurt a bit.
While fending off a deranged Stross, Ellie thought it would be a great idea to FaceTime Isaac in the middle of the struggle. Her camera is attached to her wrist, leaving her with only one hand to keep Stross from sticking a screwdriver through her eye. I wonder how Stross got that screwdriver through the side of Ellie's eyeball when he clearly shoved it through the front. Once again, Isaac removes his helmet when someone is trying to gouge his eye out. I guess he's a fan of fair play and thought it gave him an unfair advantage. That whole Stross plotline ends, and I can't help but feel it never really began. Stross did nothing the entire game despite Isaac insisting he was needed to destroy the marker.
Looks like we reached the foundation pylons of the government sector.
So how do we get in there?
Straight ahead. We do have a giant drill.
You know I'm riding on top of this thing, right?
Maybe let Isaac get inside the cab with you then instead of risking his life. He ends up getting thrown through a wall because somehow Ellie managed to crash a drill. That's right. This so-called pilot manages to crash a vehicle that's sole purpose is to run into walls and go through them.
I never wanted to let you go.
A lot happened that we never wanted.
It was difficult enough to believe that Nicole ever fell in love with a man who was only capable of expressing himself through grunts when stomping open corpses like Kinder eggs. Now that Isaac can speak, I find it even less likely. In fact, the quiet sociopath he used to be was probably more charming.
I have 200 armed security personnel. Every entrance is covered.
Oh well, Tideman has every entrance covered. Guess that's it then. Except for this hallway right in front of the barricade that leads to the unguarded room where a single battery powers all the doors and security systems of the government sector, which when unplugged lets all the necromorphs inside to kill them. If Isaac is inside this machine that sticks a needle through his cornea to read his brain and get the marker code or whatever, who's controlling it? You can't exactly LASIK yourself now, can you? And I hardly think a machine with this function would be made in such a way that would allow you to operate it yourself from inside, as evidenced with what happens if you mess up. According to everyone in my Twitch chat, that's twitch.tv/Dartigan for those interested. This is the money shot of the entire game. I'll admit, anything getting intimate with my eyeball other than my contact lens is going to make me uncomfortable. But that's it. There are a lot of things that can make me uncomfortable, such as familial love and homeless people asking me for change. In fact, most of this game just makes you feel uncomfortable instead of horrified. This is the game that EA attempted to advertise by showing gruesome death scenes of 40-year-old mothers while filming their reaction after all. Since Dead Space 2 only has one bag of tricks, it throws the unkillable necromorph you may remember from the first game at you. After the same plotline with Isaac being betrayed by a woman he trusted, then his dead girlfriend tricking him to activate the marker, and even briefly returning to the Ishimura, you should now have a better understanding of why I started sitting this series with the second game rather than covering Dead Space 1. There's barely any difference.
Thank you, Isaac. Now, time to die.
What?
How could we have ever seen Nicole's betrayal coming? I mean, Isaac only experienced it once before, and she spent the entire game glaring at him and speaking in evil whispers, but other than that, we were all kept blissfully in the dark.
Reactor containment displacements. The reactor breaches imminent. Evacuation of all personnel is required.
Turns out Isaac didn't have to do anything to destroy the marker. From the sound of it, the reactor exploding would have done just fine. Also, I thought the marker was the power source for this station. Why is there a reactor running? Maybe Ellie could stop flying the ship in a circle around the marker if she expects Isaac to get on board.
What?
If you were fine with this game repeating everything from the first Dead Space, you're probably fine with it repeating the ending only with a har har gotcha. If you are, then congratulations. You were basically sold the same game twice.
The other side will have to pick up the pieces.
Sequel baiting.
Your mom hates Dead Space 2.